A helping hand for the victims of the massive earthquake in Iran from an unexpected source, Israel. You know, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is offering his country's assistance to Tehran and also to Iraq, despite Iran's belligerent stance and hatred of the Jewish state, even amid warnings that Iran is expanding in the region at the expense of Israel, the U.S., and our Arab allies. For more on this, let's go to Jerusalem and talk to David Keyes. He is Prime Minister Netanyahu's spokesman, who joins us from there right now. David, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Sadly and tragically, the death toll is 500, at least, and climbing in Iran. And considering what they've said about your country, why would your government make this offer?
Well, the Prime Minister made this offer because he saw the horrendous pictures of mothers and fathers searching for their children amidst the rubble. Absolutely devastating images. Israel has sent humanitarian assistance and medical aid around the world to Haiti and to Mexico City, to the Philippines. Iran is a lot closer than those places, and Israel's humanitarian desire to aid the people of the region, not the regime, but the people, is what animated this decision. Of course, it surprised a lot of people because the regime has said many times that it wants to destroy Israel. It engraves missiles with the phrase Israel will be wiped off the map. But there's a big difference between the regime and the people. The regime is cruel and expansionist. The regime supports terror, and the people are the primary victims of the regime.
Well, the International Red Cross has said, you know, they don't want any help. But you're right. You pointed to the fact that they recently tested missiles that said Israel must be wiped out. They've talked about wiping Israel off the map. They've called Israel the blood-sucking Zionist regime, and then they're still chanting death to America. Let me play you a bit of what the Prime Minister said in terms of this offer.
Israel has no quarrel with the people of Iran. We never have. Our only quarrel is with the cruel Iranian regime, a regime that holds its people hostage, a regime that threatens our people with annihilation.
And meanwhile, Rouhani, the president of Iran, is getting a lot of criticism internally because of the reaction of his government and the continued death toll and the building codes even there.
Well, the Prime Minister has made several overtures to the Iranian people. He's spoken directly to them. In fact, he spoke in Farsi directly to the Iranian people. And following our offer for humanitarian aid, for medical assistance, we got an absolutely overwhelming response from Iranians thanking the Prime Minister, thanking Israel for standing in solidarity with him, and frankly for helping speak the truth about the Iranian regime. You mentioned some of the regime's desires. I mean, they call America the great Satan. They call Israel the little Satan. No offense to Europe, but they're only a mid-sized Satan. They're hanging gays from cranes in town squares. They're supporting terrorism all throughout the Middle East. And I think the fact that the vast majority of the Arab world and Israel see this threat in the exact same way should cause a lot of people to have their ears perk up and understand the threat that is against all of us.
And do you think reaching out to the citizens, the people of Iran, do you think this could start to potentially help ease any of the tensions or at least cause a resistance against the regime?
I think what it can do is highlight the tremendous gulf between the regime and the people. As I said before, the regime speaks absolutely viciously against Israel. It seeks to destroy Israel. It seeks to sow mayhem and terror throughout the Middle East. The regime is treating its own people brutally, jailing opposition, torturing journalists. And yet the people are good, and I think they want better relations with the West. I think they would like better relations with America. I think they'd like better relations with Israel. So this is part of our strategy, to speak directly to the people instead of this extremely cruel, extremely theocratic, extremely dictatorial, terrorist sponsoring and supporting regime.
And finally, at the same time, they are expanding the Shia Crescent, you know, from Tehran right on through with Yemen and into Lebanon, moving into Syria, for example, and with Hezbollah. What are your concerns, and how does Israel and the U.S., what should the Trump administration do to try and fight back against Iranian expansion?
Well, I think it took a great first step in decertifying this very flawed nuclear deal, which actually empowered Iran, which encouraged it to expand its aggression throughout the region. Iran is trying to establish a foothold in Syria. It's trying to take over Lebanon. It's supporting terrorist organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah. So its aims are clear. Its aims are not just directed at Israel, but actually at the entire world. and specifically the entire Middle East. I mean, everyone understands the threat of North Korea today, and yet Iran's GDP is 30 times that of North Korea. So you can imagine if Iran is acting this way without nuclear weapons, why it's so important to stop their quest to attain nuclear weapons. And what this very flawed deal does is actually increase the chances that within just a few years, not by violating the deal, but by keeping the deal, Iran can walk into the capacity to enrich enough uranium for hundreds of nuclear weapons. That's bad for Iranians, that's bad for Israel, that's bad for the Middle East, that's bad for the entire world.
Yeah, the critics say that gives them the green light, basically, under this deal in about 8 years to go for that. David Keyes, thank you, and thank you for speaking to us about the Iranian challenge. It is the challenge that we all face.